everybody. Give me a second, last and final try with John. We're going to be talking about autism, twice exceptionality, his foundation and his work. John, can you join with your video on, please, if it's possible? No, you're declining it. You just have to accept my invite. I'll try that again. It should just be easy to accept it. Hi, Kunal. Thank you for coming back. John, you're here, but you'll need to join in. Otherwise, you can invite me. It shouldn't take long. Hi, John. Can you see me? Maybe you want to try and go invite me. Next to the comment box, there's a video sign with a plus sign, John. Do you want to try pressing that? No, you're here. I can see that, but I don't know how to. Yeah, you just. Still not working. Oh. All right.
Okay.
Yay, you're here. This is amazing. Hi, John. Super exciting that you're here. I'm going to give a quick 1 minute introduction. We'll get begun. We finally made it. This is great. So this is John. Thank you, everybody, whoever could join. Today we're going to be talking about twice exceptionality, which basically means individuals who are both gifted but also have a significant disability or a deficit in one area. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm going to let John shed more light on him, his work, his foundation, his journey thus far, and we get into a lot more. So, because we've tried this so many times and we failed, so I'm not going to take more time. John, over to you. Let's start off with just, introducing you, what you do about your foundation. Thank you for being here
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah, sure. My name's John Truitt, and I have a 501c3 foundation called On the Spectrum Foundation. I'm sure Devana will get into it with some questions, and I can give you some more background about my life. But firstly, thank you for the introduction. You said talented and gifted with deficits. I use differences, and that's what we use in our school. They're simply learning differences, whether it's dyslexia, dyscalculia, autism. It's just a different way of thinking, and in many ways, a really, really good way of thinking. But my foundation helps predominantly teens and adults who are 2E, and I am a 2E teacher at an all 2E school in Moab, Utah.
Okay. So John, can you talk a little bit more about 2E, because I've worked with some 2E kids in the past without knowing that they're 2E. They've been my high schoolers and my middle schoolers when I've taught them. But again, there's a lot of like misdiagnosis, overdiagnosis, confusion in the area. So could you shed light on the subject?
Yeah, sure. Um, Obviously, as you said, twice exceptional is when you're gifted, and then you have an accompanying difference, often ADHD, dyslexia, and autism. There are other differences, but those are kind of the main three. And it really creates kind of an asynchronous life. And I'm sure, as you've seen in education, very asynchronous. You can be really, really good in a certain subject, can be above average in most, and then have a deficit in other areas. So, like with me, my career versus my education, it doesn't match up. I always did very well in school. I went to uni for a year and a half and found it to be exceptionally boring. After that, was actually a combat medic in the Army, and 4 years later, listed a company on the stock exchange. So most people that go to school, go to tertiary education for a year and a half,
Yeah.
don't end up listing a company on the stock exchange or creating another large private business like I did. So I'm very much a verbal learner. So I really don't. I mean, even though I'm dyslexic, I read exceptionally well. I do not spell well, and there's a lot of misunderstanding um, about that, like what it is. But no, as a verbal learner, I simply pretty much learn through Socratic exchange. So you tell me what you want me to know. Let me ask questions, answer my questions, and I'm finished. And that's the reason I found uni so boring. I was kind of like, well, why aren't these people getting this? Why is this so slow? The professor has told us what this needs to be. You know what I mean? Why do you feel like
Yeah.
you have to go do all this? So anyway, I just didn't see much point. And I come from very highly educated family. A father and granddaughter, or father and grandfather are doctors. My mom has her master's actually in early childhood development. So for me not to basically become a doctor was a big family shock. And it was like at first like a letdown until I had my later career.
So can I ask you a follow-up question? I've studied, like, I've theoretically studied all this subject and been in the field for long. But how would you say, what is the difference between someone who's Asperger's, someone who's high functioning on the spectrum of autism, and twice exceptionality? Like, what would be, is it easily blurred, or are there very visible differences?
Very, very blurred. Very blurred. In the United States, we don't use the term Asperger's, within the educational area, and they're trying to make it where it's really no longer a term. So I would identify as autistic. So we try to get rid of that term, but I know what you
Yeah.
mean. Honestly, between I think you can be high functioning autistic, what we would classically call that, and possibly not be 2E. I think what we used to label as Asperger's is almost always 2E, if that makes
Interesting.
sense.
It does. It does. It does. That's really interesting. So you're saying like Asperger's and 2E is like very similar to each other.
I think
Uh,
what used to be labeled that, I
yeah.
think they're often very similar. If you see the people, of the famous people now, there's many, for lack of a better term, coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm on the spectrum." The ones that say Asperger's are definitely like Elon Musk on a big show here called Saturday Night Live about 9 months ago came out and said, "I have Asperger's."
That's
So
right.
you usually when you hear that, it's 2E, and there's quite a bit of controversy within the autism community. Um, there's both. They don't want the term Asperger's used, but a lot of the autism community doesn't like the fact that two autistics exist. They have, what's called lower functioning, and I don't like low or high functioning, but they have classically lower functioning, possibly nonverbal kids, and then they look at somebody who's autistic 2E,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
in
Makes
many
sense.
ways kind of a prejudice against us.
So tell me something. Can I ask you a really odd question? But it's just intriguing to me. When I get on social media, it could be Instagram Reels, it could be LinkedIn, it could be like just YouTube. There's a lot of people who are doing a lot of social commentary these days. I think it's like it's multiplied by a billion than what it was maybe 100 years ago. Um, and it gives me anxiety. Like one live and it'll give me anxiety because I'm just like, oh my god, this was like so much of visible public speaking. Do you think like that is adding a rise to this? Like do you think that is contributing in any way that we have this portal of Instagram or LinkedIn to get on and do a social commentary?
I think it has pluses and negatives, right?
Yeah.
Positives and negatives. From a positive standpoint, when you have someone like yourself or many of the people I've connected with that understand what autism is and 2E is, it's very, very productive and powerful. And it allows, you know, people that have been diagnosed as 2E or their parents to really interface, and I think it's great. Unfortunately, 95% of social media are people, you know, TikToking back and
Yeah,
forth,
yeah, yeah.
and they don't know what they're talking about, and they're putting out these really strong opinions, and
Yeah.
so it's both. I think it helps for identification,
Yeah.
right? But I think it really probably hurts more once you're diagnosed and you're trying to explain the landscape,
Yeah.
right?
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. All right. Thank you. That makes sense. Okay. So what led you to eventually get tested for, why did you one day decide to go and get tested for this whole battery of autism or twice exceptionality and all of that? And what came out from your test? Because I know you publicly disclosed
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's on my website.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, so I've always been different.
Yeah.
In kindergarten, I could read at the fifth to sixth grade level.
Yeah.
Um, by the time I was in second grade, my parents were noticing I had a problem with math,
Yeah.
but because I was really good in other subjects, it was like, oh, well, you must not be trying,
Yeah.
right? And that's not it at all, right? I just had super strengths in one area, and I have what's called dyscalculia,
Yeah.
right? So let me use that as an example, and I'm getting to kind of long answer to your question, but giving you context. So within my diagnosis, I calculate math, right,
Yeah.
at like a 10th grade level.
Yeah.
I apply math, so the
Yeah.
actual use of the math at a grad school level.
Yeah.
So think about taking math classes. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's almost impossible for me to do algebra, but I'll answer questions that require trig and calculus if you're talking to me about things literally. So
Yeah.
my point is, I'd always had this disconnect.
Yeah.
Like I say, uni a year and a half, and then CEOing a company. That just is really back and forth. So there'd always been this disconnect. Ultimately, the reason that I sought a diagnosis was my wife and I were in marriage counseling because I was really spun up, getting angry, just not a good situation. So we went to marriage counseling, and after about 3 months, the marriage counselor said, I'm not qualified to do this, but I'm not qualified to diagnose you, but I'm allowed to recognize. And then said I should go out and find a really good doctor, which, long story short, through a network of friends, I did. And then that led to my diagnosis. Um,
Wow.
and it
So,
wasn't
so,
a,
so when you say there was a disconnect, what is a disconnect? Like you said, you were very successful professionally, academically, but you said there was always a disconnect. What does a disconnect mean? How would you define that?
Well, it was just very asynchronous, right? It's if you look at neurotypicals, they're kind of to oversimplify it or even stereotype. They're either average, you know, some smart, really smart, right? There's a disconnect because overall average, right? I'm smart,
Yeah.
and then I would have these areas that were like off the chart good, and then I would
Yeah.
have these areas that it's like I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, no matter how hard I try, whatever I do, I am never ever ever going to be able to do algebra, right? It's
Yeah.
just not going to happen. At
Got
the
it.
other end of it, as far as budgeting, uh using a P&L, reforecasting, running all the numbers that you would run a company, it
Yeah.
comes totally natural to me. Like, it's just
Interesting.
so essentially what would happen in business is I would have a really good CFO who
Yeah.
could put all the numbers together, and then I would come after that and say, okay, move this box to this, move this over here. If this number equals this, then this number over here could not equal that.
Yeah.
But it's all in real things. It's not X plus Y times two, it's none of that.
Yeah.
It has to be realistic for me to
I
do it.
love that. That's really interesting to see. And did you ever push yourself in the areas that you couldn't do? I know I struggle with certain things, so I'm always wondering, should I push myself in those areas, or is this just my disability, like academically or logically?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what led to a lot of frustration and masking and meltdowns over the years. Until I got diagnosed, I thought I was good at everything. Kind of,
Yeah.
it kind of was my
Yeah.
attitude, and I'm not. I had to, kind of accept. Oh wow, you're not good at this part, but you're good at this other part. But like I say, it gets really, really convoluted. So I use the math example.
Yeah.
With dyslexia, my type of dyslexia is a slow reading rate.
Yeah.
So when I was in school, I always scored in the 99 percentile of
Yeah.
comprehension,
Yeah.
right? Well, I now know that as I became a business person, was reading lots of emails, I was skimming it,
Yeah.
right? So I was just skimming through it. My reading comprehension went way down. When I'm given twice the amount of time, it goes back up,
Yeah.
right? So just the dynamics and being able to super comprehend yet read slowly,
Hmm.
right? Most neurotypicals that are really good at reading comprehension read really
Yeah.
fast, right? So you have these constant things that it's like always one and one makes three.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes sense. How interesting. That's super cool to know. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So what came out when you went for a diagnosis? What came out of that?
As far as my full diagnosis,
Yeah.
um, autism spectrum disorder, level 2, dyscalculia, dyslexia, OCD, expressive and receptive communication disorder. I think that's it. There may
And
be another one.
and did
I forget.
and did in any way you think that there was overdiagnosis or make that misdiagnosis, or you're just like, nope, this makes sense.
No,
All this is true.
absolutely not. I went through 3 days of testing with a doctor who's the definitely within the top three, if not the premier um,
Yeah.
doctor that focuses on
Yeah.
twice exceptionality with
Yeah.
autism.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And like I say, 3 days of testing. It's an 88-page report. I have not a formal medical background, but it's what's
Yeah.
called a special interest. I've spent my career in medicine, so it was very easy for me to understand what he was telling me.
Yeah.
My wife immediately, like a
Yeah.
lot of times, what'll happen is a spouse won't believe.
Yeah.
Right? They'll say, "Oh, this isn't that," or "That's an excuse." My wife instantly was like, once it was explained what it is, she was
Yeah.
like, "That's you."
Yeah.
100% that's you.
Yeah.
So I never doubted my diagnosis, which a lot of people do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I instantly accepted it.
Wow. Wow, that's super interesting. So can you tell me, is it easy? Sorry, I'm on a call. Sorry. So, no, sorry. There's somebody at my home and they're ringing the bell. So tell me, is it easy to diagnose an autistic child as 2E at a very early age, or does it take time and maturity and for the comorbidities to, play out for the diagnosis? Like, I know autism can be diagnosed at age 2 or like 18 months, 12 months, right? But is
Mm-hmm.
twice exceptionality also easily diagnosed that early, or does it take time?
Well, it depends. A, it depends on what type of twice exceptionality. B, it depends on how good the clinician is, how much they know. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, a lot don't. A lot of well-intended clinicians just do not know enough
yeah,
about it. So you ask, is it hard to diagnose?
yeah,
I didn't get diagnosed till I was 45, right?
mhm,
So I mean that should give you some perspective. And
yeah,
we're the ones in school that get lost. Either
yeah,
your either your giftedness outshines your difference,
yeah, yeah,
right? Which
yeah,
was my case. So people, I was, in some honors classes, I was considered a smart kid.
yeah,
Or you have where the difference or disability outshines the giftedness.
yeah,
So those people often end up in what has been traditionally called the slow classes,
right, right,
right?
right,
Even though they're really bright. And then you have where it equals out. And then
yeah,
that's like an average student, but they're not an average
yeah,
student, right? So it can be very difficult to diagnose. There's also another huge issue in the autism community. Number one, I spoke at 9 months. I never crawled. I walked at 9 months. Exceptionally social, like really
mm,
social, never got bullied, right?
mm,
So there's never, you look at me and you would think all of those would, not fit the criteria.
yeah,
Well, as we're learning and as people are starting to accept, it's not always that way.
yeah,
And what I see it as, and I think this will be proven out, it's
yeah,
extremes.
yeah,
So you're either extreme one way, like extremely social, extremely this on my side, or you're the opposite way, which is the classic way everybody thinks of autism, Asperger's, like not making contact, not really caring about having friends. Not,
yeah,
I mean, I am extreme the other
yeah,
way. So you can't just put it in a box. And yes, it can be very difficult to diagnose or early on and catch them in school.
right, right. How interesting. And can the personality, like, has your personality always been this way, or has it changed or morphed? And
No, I've always been like exceptionally
yeah,
outgoing. But yeah, exceptionally outgoing. Another thing that they say is, people on the spectrum, don't play sports or whatever. I wrestled in high school. People on the spectrum can't do, military things. I was an air assault qualified light infantry combat medic. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, you can do all these things. So they're
yeah.
just, trying to pigeonhole it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And you have to have a really astute educator in school to be able to pick it.
Awesome.
There are some,
Yeah,
but I mean there are people that specialize in it. That's what they
yeah.
do. Usually the teachers that had taught honors classes and see another student, that kind of thing.
So tell me something, John. What work does your foundation really do? I mean, I've seen your website; it looks great. I'll also talk to you about the artwork there. But what work does your foundation do?
Again, we predominantly work with teens and adults that are twice exceptional.
Yeah,
I now teach school, as I said, at an all 2E school, right? So a lot of my foundation revolves around really helping the school because it's something that's tangible that I can point to.
yeah,
Most of my website is awareness,
yeah,
right? I tell my
yeah,
story on it, and it's
yeah,
mostly awareness.
yeah,
But yeah, the goal of the foundation is really to identify more 2E folks, help those people.
yeah.
And the way that I'm doing that on a day-to-day basis is teaching at the Heron School in Moab, Utah.
Yeah, got it. Interesting. And what is, I mean, you must be seeing children and teenagers and adults with who are twice exceptional or on the spectrum of autism almost every day, weekly, new people coming in. What is your perspective on why are we seeing such a big rise in numbers? I mean, from what I understand today, about 1 out of 48 to 76 kids on the who get tested are
It's
diagnosed on the spectrum.
it's
What do you think
very
is causing this rise?
it's very simple. It's people are clinicians and educators are more informed and they're able to identify it, right?
Yeah,
There's this whole thing well, there's a big split in the autism community. Do you want to be accepted or do you want to be cured,
yeah,
right? The parents of the people that want to be cured, I understand this, but they'll grasp at straws. So there's the vaccine thing, there's the pollution thing, and none of those things are good,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But they have absolutely nothing to do with autism, and it's
yeah,
like getting autism, like you get it,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
born that way.
yeah,
You're simply born that
yeah,
way. So, you know, again, that's a difficult dynamic, and I don't blame those parents. But it's kind of like, great, that's your side of it. Here's our side of it,
yeah.
and it's pretty controversial within the community.
Interesting. So if like this is a random, maybe not such a does might not seem like an important question, but I feel like it's going to help out a lot of people. You and another average American 45-year-old who lives in the same neighborhood, earns around the same amount of money, comes from the same, socioeconomic strata. How do you think you two are different with you being twice exceptional in autism and with a diagnosis of autism and him being neurotypical? What would be some stark differences between you both?
Um, Honestly, not many. Really not many. I can, tend to have what's called one-sided conversation, and I used to do that a lot before I was diagnosed. And all that really means is I'm just giving people more information that they feel like they know. And that they kind of like, I've got it, and I keep giving more and more detail.
Yeah,
So I don't really do that. I catch myself. I
yeah,
think the key to my career has actually been surrounding myself with neurotypicals that are really really good at what
yeah,
they do. So I come in and do the more creative thought,
yeah.
often on the marketing side, help lead the vision, and then I have really smart neurotypicals as my chief financial officer, my chief operations officer, and they're able to scaffold me basically. Yeah, and so talking with the neighbor and stuff next door, I mean, that's what I've done my whole life around smart
Yeah,
2E people. Or
yeah,
sorry, around smart
yeah,
neurotypicals, and been
yeah.
very
Got
been
it,
very accepted in those communities.
got it, got it. Interesting. And I saw that you've got a lot of good art on your website. Have you always been artistic? Is it something new? Like talk a little bit about that. And does it help you in any way?
Yeah. So, as far as artistic goes, I played bass guitar when I was in high school and college.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the end of it. I'd never painted.
Yeah.
And in 2018, about 6 months after my diagnosis, I was in a board meeting and just kind of looked over at my CFO and I was our COO and I was like, "Well, okay, you've got this." And he was like, "Well, where are you going?"
Yeah.
Going to the art store.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me like,
Yeah.
you know, like what? Because I'd never done that. At any rate, went in, didn't like watercolors, didn't like oils. I gravitated toward acrylic,
Yeah.
and this was almost like being called toward it, and
Yeah.
it was odd. It was a
Yeah.
really odd experience.
Yeah.
But went to acrylics, got a canvas, put it in an easel. It felt very uncomfortable. Picked up a brush that felt uncomfortable, so I bought a palette knife,
Yeah.
mostly like you'd use with oils. Took the canvas home, put it face down on a table, and then just started this unique style of painting. And I'm currently in two galleries, one in Colorado, one in Texas, and they're actually selling quite well. I sold like 10 over the last month. But ultimately, what I do is I use that as marketing collateral for my
Yeah.
foundation.
Yeah.
So if you look at my artist statement,
Yeah.
it explains my background,
Yeah.
and then there's a way to contact the foundation.
Right.
So it's a piece of marketing collateral that they hold on to,
That's
and
awesome.
it goes into their, they'll put it somewhere in their home. A friend will come over, oh, I see the new
Yeah.
painting, it looks really different.
Yeah.
Well, this is not, an autistic guy, and then every time
Mm.
they'll either have an autistic brother, sister, son, right? So it creates that conversation. I mean, it's classic
Yeah.
marketing collateral,
Yeah.
really, is what
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is.
Makes sense. That's awesome. So anything else, that you, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to talk about autism, twice exceptionality, any myths or stereotypes or anything that we might have misunderstood in the space that you might want to clear out, A, and B, anything else about your foundation that you'd want everyone to know?
Okay, sorry, you got to ask me
So
one question
A,
at a time. What was the first?
so the first question is, what is, are there any myths or stereotypes
Yeah,
or bad misinformation about autism or twice
there's
exceptionality, which
tons of
so if you had to
misinformation.
clean up
Tons.
top three misinformations, what would those be?
Um, that autism is caused by something, right? That's that's the single biggest issue, really. I mean, that is one, two, and three.
Yeah,
Is that autism is caused by something and it can be
yeah,
cured, right? It's not caused by anything. It's a neurological difference you are born with.
yeah,
And honestly, that's one. That's A, B, and C. That's one, two,
yeah.
three. That is the big gorilla in the room.
Right. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Got it. And anything about your foundation that you think that is one thing that people should know about your foundation?
Yeah, I would just like to direct people to it. There's nothing to buy. I'm not selling anything. It's just information. It's what's called a 501(c)(3), which in the States is a charity,
Yeah,
essentially. And if I don't know if you're able to put it in the chat, but if you wouldn't mind putting the
I'll do
website in
that.
there,
I'll do
then if
that when I post
if
it.
anybody has any follow-up questions, just
I
email me
will
through the website and I
do
can
that.
answer those
I'm gonna
questions.
put that in the comment when I post it.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Awesome. Anything else that you want to kind of close this conversation with? Because I think it's a lot of good, important information that you shared, and I think that's always helpful. So, anything else that you'd like to share before we end?
No, I just thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank
And
you. Thank you.
and like I say, please contact me with any questions. There are no dumb questions. Just
Agreed.
reach out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put your information in the chat, and I just think this was so helpful. Even for me, who has been in this field for so long, there was a lot of new information because you're twice exceptional. So just hearing straight from you was very helpful to me. So thank you so much for doing this, and I really appreciate you. Have a lovely Friday and a lovely weekend ahead.
You
And
as well. Thank you so
thank
much.
you. Thank you for doing this. Bye. Take care.
Okay.
See
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.